Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast, and I am your host, Samuel. In this podcast, I interview top medical sales reps and leading medical sales executives across the entire country. And it doesn't matter what medical sales industry, from medical device to pharmaceutical to genetic testing to diagnostic lab, you name it. You will learn how to either break into the industry, be a top 5% performer within your role in sales, or climb the corporate ladder. Welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. Today we have with us Matt Nover. He is Director of Clinical Sales at Telebio. One interesting thing about Matt's career is he was actually a pro basketball player who toured the world and played in some big leagues before becoming Director of Clinical Sales and even entering the medical sales space. So it's going to be a great episode because we're going to talk about his position, but also what brought him from that career to this career and all the amazing things he's doing today. As always, thank you for listening to the Medical Sales Podcast, and I really do hope you enjoy this episode. So before we get started, I have a couple programs that show you exactly how to break into the medical sales industry, become a top-performing medical sales professional, and masterfully navigate your career to executive-level leadership. Visit evolveyoursuccess.com to find out more. Hey, Matt, how you doing today?
Good, Samuel. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Glad you can join us here on the Medical Sales Podcast. So
excited to be here.
Definitely. You know what? Normally, I say a little blurb about you, Matt, but you got this fascinating story. I'm going to let you kick it off. Matt, who are you? And what do you do?
Well, I'm Matt Nover. I'm a husband and a father, first and foremost, Samuel. We just kind of talked about that and get to know each other here during our process of connecting. But I'm a husband of 18 years to my wife, Claudia. She is from the wonderful country of Portugal, where I met her during my professional basketball career. And then we have a 12-year-old son, Vincent, our one and only. So we've done quite a bit of traveling. I started off my career as a professional basketball player after finishing at Indiana University. And since then, I've gone through an interesting pathway that's led me into medical device sales. And I'm currently a director of clinical sales development at a soft tissue reconstruction company called Telebio.
Soft tissue reconstruction at Telebio. Okay, before we even get into the history of how you got there, for those in the audience that might not know exactly what that is, what exactly is that? What is it that you're doing each and every day?
So it's soft tissue recon is mostly for abdominal wall and hernia, right, applications, as well as plastic surgery. So plastic surgeons do a lot of reconstruction, right? And so we focus in the abdominal wall hernia space. So we work with general surgeons, colorectal surgeons, trauma surgeons who are doing, larger ab wall reconstructions after trauma, cardiothoracic surgeons that deal with hernias in the hiatus around the esophagus, right, in the diaphragm. We work with cardiothoracic surgeons who do chest wall reconstruction. So they're reconstructing the diaphragm and the soft tissue muscles around the rib cage and the chest cavity that hold the lungs.
Wow. And being the director of clinical sales, do you go out into the field and spend time with representatives to train, or not as much?
Yeah, definitely. So when there's opportunities to get in the field for regional meetings, for when now things are opening up, right? It's been very remote, as everybody knows. We've been doing this all virtually. We've done a great job actually with our company in developing virtual programs, right, that we can do through Zoom calls like this. We've done a lot of training through this. But yes, I definitely can, get out in the field in this director position, work with reps one-on-one when needed, work with them in groups. And, we do various things like labs and we do conferences, of course. And yes, there's definitely some travel involved.
Your reps were able to work remotely with their providers over the quarantine time?
Yeah, we were.
Talk a little bit about that.
Well, so, it hit last March, right? So everything really locked down and it came to emergency procedures only, as you know. Elective cases were completely locked down unless it was a life-threatening situation. So for us, a lot of the hernia procedures and the abdominal wall reconstructions just got postponed and canceled, and they weren't happening. So everything that concerned us was in trauma. But anyway, we still wanted to stay in touch with surgeons, right? We still needed to figure out how to share our story, share our product, share what we do and our solution for patient care. And so we just would reach out virtually through emails, through offers of programs, right? Through using video, right? Through sending maybe videos, through texting to relationships, any way that we could get in front of surgeons. And then we started developing programs. So we had a VIP program where we would bring interested surgeons who want to learn more about our company and our solution to our headquarters, right, in Philadelphia, outside of Philadelphia. Well, we couldn't do that during COVID last year, so we started offering virtual VIPs. And a virtual VIP, which now are called lives, tele-live programs that are virtual and now becoming in person, right? So they can fly out to a live engagement in Philadelphia. We would do them where we had our entire leadership team, including the sales representative that engaged the surgeon or the customer, and then all of our leaders, our CMO, our CEO, our vice president of sales, whoever was actually needed, our lead engineer would get on this call. And we would have a team on the live that would engage with the surgeon or surgeons, present product, answer any and all questions, and see if there was a need that we could fulfill. And it was great. We actually engaged. We ran some interesting numbers, Samuel, and saw quite a bit of ROI in terms of they were very effective in that culture build, right? And in the beginning and underneath at the base of everything that we do, Samuel, we're all human beings. So when you make a relationship connection and a personal connection to say, these people are sincere, they're full of integrity, they're doing things for the right reasons. They actually are concerned about what I'm doing as a surgeon, my patients, for my practice. Man, we make that connection, and we were worried. Everybody was. We didn't know if actually that would even work because people were kind of running from these platforms, right? And actually, it's worked really well for us so far.
Excellent. That is excellent. So then would you say that now that we're coming out and we're getting back to normal, do you feel with your business that things are going to go right back to the way they were? Or do you think do you feel that things have been permanently changed and you guys still have to find new ways to get access and do what you want to do with your customers?
Oh yeah, they've definitely changed for forever, right? They'll never be the same as they were. We were getting to that point. If you even go maybe 3 years back to the point of things changing, there was not that traditional engage the surgeon, and medical device. They want the product, great. It's going to be, used in the next case. As you know, the processes were getting much more complicated. Supply chain and hospitals and purchasing groups were making that interaction for sales reps and for the industry more difficult to get in front of customers and surgeons to offer a unique solution with new products and innovation. It was becoming complicated. COVID just stepped it up another level, as you know, right? So, we did these lives for supply chain people as well. We would do, those are our customers as well, the hospital administrators.
Right.
And so we would engage them. So this has changed now forever because almost what they realized in the last year is if we can do this all virtually, then why do you need to even come into our facility? So the problem, right, is if you're really good at your virtual engagement, with the market, then, what is the sales rep going to do?
Exactly.
But in the end, you're always going to, again, it's the human touch. You're always going to need personal, face-to-face interaction. It's always going to be needed. You can't go completely virtual. We're not AI. We're not robotic. We're not, that's all coming too. Where so much of this healthcare is going to be remote, right, Samuel?
Yes.
But there's still going to be a need for human connection and touch and face to face. So it has changed forever. But man, if you can really work that hybrid of virtual interaction, using more video, reaching out to people and using less of their time, right, and not flooding them, because now, man, what are we faced with? That time is so much more money because we're so distracted by so many, different things that are pulling our attention.
Yes, these are facts. And you're right. I think the hybrid model, there is no other way to go. And companies that can really figure out how to maximize that hybrid model and still keep their customers engaged, they're going to be able to just fine. That's okay. That's good. That's good. Well, let's walk it back a little bit. I want to get back into, how you got to where you are today. And you have a really interesting history that people have to know about Matt. So let's take us back to college. What were you doing in college?
Well, I was part of the Indiana University basketball team. So I got recruited out of high school to play in Indiana for Coach Bob Knight. We had great teams back in the late 80s, early 90s. If anyone's a big basketball fan out there, they're familiar with it. I was on the teams of Calbert Cheney and Greg Graham and Damon Bailey, Alan Henderson, some big basketball names in the Midwest that went on to have NBA careers. But we had great teams. We went to the Final Four. We lost to Duke in the Final Four in the semifinals in 1992. We played against Shaquille O'Neal's LSU team back in 92 as well. Last college game, I'll take credit for guarding him for most of the game.
Wow, come on.
Big man down,
What was that like?
Oh, that was great. I mean, there were so many great players back in those days, man, that in the Big Ten alone, names like A.C. Earl and Mike Popowski out of Michigan State, Jamal Mashburn out of Kentucky. I mean, so many powerhouse players, right? The Fab Five out of Michigan, Juwan Howard, Chris Webber, Jalen Rose. We played against these guys. So it was a great era of basketball. But here's an interesting note. I think that our graduating class of Calbert Cheney, Greg Graham, Chris Reynolds, and myself in 1993, we have the most for a graduating class at IU, the most wins of any class in IU history, IU basketball history. So that's cool. I think that stands, Samuel, the way that, players don't last for 4 years, they're always in and out pretty quick in the college game. If they're good enough to get to the NBA, they'll jump. I think that record's going to stand, man, because a player like Calbert Cheney probably nowadays will never stay 4 years,
Sure. Excellent. So you recruited, you were in Indiana, you played with all these greats. Then what?
Well, yeah, so I went to the Kelley School of Business at IU, and I got a marketing and management degree in business school. And then from there, little jump. So, I wanted to launch my basketball career, but I had a little, I don't know if you call it a platform of a different arena, but it was, I actually was in a movie. So have you seen Blue Chips?
Of course I've seen Blue Chips.
So you remember the character from The Farm, from French Lick?
Oh, wow. Now this I didn't know. Wait. So you got
I was holding that one back because I wanted to throw you for a loop when we were live, man. I didn't even tell you about that one.
Wow. So you got your business degree and then you went into the movies a little bit?
Well, so no, it was just kind of a one-time thing. So the directors and the producers of White Men Can't Jump and Bull Durham, so they were making this movie, right? And they came to Indiana for like 2 weeks because they wanted to build the characters kind of based off of Bobby Knight's personality and character background. And so the movie is based on a coach who's a fictitious coach in a school in UCLA or out in Los Angeles, who's always been straight and narrow, right? Always followed all the rules, never cheated. And that in college basketball, it's been forever controversy with paying players and, kids not going to school and what have you. And so anyway, this coach is faced with that dilemma. He's losing his players to other schools that are giving them, gifts or money or whatever it might be, cars. And he has to make a decision in the movie. And anyway, that character was played by Nick Nolte, and he kind of, plays a Bob Knight personality. Well, anyway, they were at IU for 2 weeks during my senior season. And so they followed us around and they did a lot of filming, a lot of studying, character study. And in the end, what turned out is they invited us all to be in the movie. But beyond that, they invited me for this major part to be one of the main 3 recruits, Nick Nolte recruits in the movie. So it was myself, and then it was Shaquille O'Neal played the other role, and Anthony Hardaway from Memphis. And so that's kind of how it happened, man. It was just like luck of the draw. I was in the right place at the right time. So as soon as I graduated, we started filming out in LA and down in French Lick, Indiana, and various places. Yeah. And that was at the same time that my major focus, though, was trying to make the NBA and start a professional basketball career, right? Because I had that opportunity after my college career. So I was doing filming of the movie in the summer of 93, as well as going to NBA summer camps and pre-draft camps and all that stuff.
Was he the cocky guy, right, in the movie?
The what guy?
The farmer guy was the cocky guy. Oh, oh man, I remember.
I had shorter hair back then, a lot younger, of course. I'm 50 years old now, man. So
wow, that's
21.
That's the bell.
I hope you're enjoying today's episode. And I want to let you know that I have a couple of programs that show you exactly how to break into the medical sales industry, become a top-performing medical sales professional, and masterfully navigate your career to executive level leadership. Visit evolveyoursuccess.com to find out more.
All right, so then you said, okay, you know what, I'm going to get serious about my basketball career. You started going to the camps. Walk us through. I mean, what led to your first opportunity in the medical sales space?
In basketball?
No.
In my pro career or medical device sales?
Actually, we have to get to your pro career first. That happened first. So walk us through what happened then.
Well, yeah. So I did the pre-draft camp, and of course I was assigned an agent. So once you're eligible to play professionally and you don't have any more eligibility academically in college, you can get an agent. And so the four of us that were graduating that year, Calvert and the rest of us, we all had agents. That extended, into a 12-year international basketball career. So I played about 7 years in Europe and 3 or 4 in Asia, in Japan.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're going to have a separate episode that just talks about your experience as a pro player. I got to know much more. But okay. All right. So you had really good experience as a pro player.
Right.
What happened when you said, you know what, I'm going to do something different?
Yeah, man. I mean, retirement always has to come at some point, right? And so you learn so much from it. And I think that there's a lot of parallels between sports and business. There just are. It's just like, the behaviors, the personality traits, the way that you have to develop teamwork, the way you have to play well and work with others, the way that there's leadership versus, being part of a team, part of a group. You have to shine individually, right? You have to make sure that you're developing individually, but you also have to develop within a team, within an organization. Right. And it's the same in sports as it is in basketball. So I learned so many great things. And based on that, that's kind of how I launched into, another career, and transitioned from 12 years in sports, which is tough, right? And I talked to a lot of other former athletes, Samuel, that, when you graduate from college, usually your pathway is to go into the job market. Right? You have to build a resume and you have to start, doing interviews and start a career. But when you have a 5 to a 10 to a 15-year gap between, right, when you graduated college to, going into the job market, that's tough because you haven't built the resume, you haven't built the experience necessarily in any field. And so I had to translate what I learned in life experience. So I didn't have career experience. I sort of did. I had a sports career, right, Sam? But I had career experience more than anything. And I think that that's what I used to say, here's what I did. Here's how I was successful. Here are the skill sets that I've developed. Here are the leadership capabilities that I've worked on and developed. And here's how I've helped others. And here's how I can help you, right? And so the first thing before I met anybody in medical device, though, I opened up my own basketball school. So for about a year, what made the most sense was to apply everything in my experience and that I've learned, training and developing myself as an athlete and also coaching others in basketball and athletic development. So I opened up a school. And I did that for about a year in Indiana. And during that time, I met a father of one of the high school kids that I was training, was in medical devices and orthopedics. And so I just started in conversation, chatting with him about the industry and the world of med device. Loved it. A lot of former athletes I already knew about were in it. I just thought it was very interesting. It was also competitive, but it was really a chance where you've applied your skills in a similar way to have towards excellence and success. And I just noticed a lot of parallels, and it was really interested in me. And so I started interviewing, and about after a year of doing the basketball, I got my first opportunity with a company called Wright Medical in Chicago. Yeah.
Wow. So I got to say, even being a coach, having your own program to train other, talent in basketball, people that want to be talent in basketball, and then having a pro career, that had to have been a strong talking point when you started at Wright Medical.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. So, but, it was ground floor for me, right? Because I had no experience. So, yeah, they wanted to work with me to, develop and see if I could translate what I learned to the medical device arena, work with surgeons and be able to develop business in a different sense because I didn't have any experience developing business. So, the marketing and management background obviously helped me be able to strategize, to plan, to build, to look at the territory, to look at the customer targets and figure out a plan, right? And so I was very well organized and I could do that. And I think I showed them, that in interviewing. And look, I dove in to learn. And I'm telling you, look, I always enjoyed being able to coach. I always enjoyed helping someone learn how to shoot a left-hand layup, for example, like young athletes that couldn't. But when I tried to teach it, I had to break it down, right? Because you have to break down the mechanics of it. How do they get the ball from the hip to the extension? How do they lift that other knee when they're so, it's so awkward for them. So we broke it down into little steps. And I did the same thing, in business. I broke it down into little steps, and I also figured out what I had to develop. So I was a sponge, man. I mean, I went to those that were successful. I worked well with my distributor and all my leaders at Wright Medical to understand what success looks like. What is the pathway to getting there? What do I have to learn? And it was a tough road, right? It's difficult because you got to pick up clinical knowledge. You develop your expertise clinically. You have to know procedure. You have to know anatomy. All these things that you didn't really think mattered really do matter.
Got it.
And so it was a continual learning process.
Got it. So you went from Wright Medical, and then you went into Cook Medical,
right,
and then finally Intuitive Surgical. Were those just you deciding, you want more and something different, or was there a unique reason for those two jumps?
Yeah, I don't think anything too unique, right? I mean, you're always looking at making connections. You're always meeting people as you go along your pathway. And I think this is so much, Samuel, about your personal development. You really have to be self-aware. Self-awareness is a huge thing, no matter what we're doing in life. But I think, in medical devices, it's really important to understand, what is your purpose of being there? Why are you in medical devices? Are you just there to make money? Or do you understand that to be successful, there's all of these things that you need to do, on a daily basis, right? Are you reading the journals? Are you understanding anatomy? Are you understanding who are all the major hernia surgeons, for example, if we're in hernia? Or who are the key colorectal surgeons, and where do they play, and what are their specialties, and who have they taught, and who have they trained? All the stuff is interconnected. Who are the competitors, right? And that's how you move from one to the other. You really start engaging with your competitors. And sometimes when we're in a competing industry, even in sports, we don't want to talk or get to know our competition. We keep them at bay, right? But it's almost that old saying is, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. And so the better you know your competition, right, the more you're going to learn about how maybe you have an advantage and what you can learn from them. They can teach you a lot, not only to develop yourself, but in terms of advantage in the field and on the plane and on the court, so to speak, when you're competing.
Definitely. And then from Intuitive, you got into Telebio, and that's when things really took off for you. You were account manager there, and then you became a regional sales manager. That jump alone, tell us about that. For those listening that are in roles right now, and they're thinking, I want to get into leadership. What would you advise them, and what did you learn in your pathway to get into that position?
Well, I think the titles will come based on really how you carry yourself and what you're doing. Again, I've always thought of myself as someone that wants to serve others, wants to help, and wants to get someone else better. And then to do that, though, you really have to develop yourself first. Because if I'm going to teach somebody else, or I'm going to help somebody else succeed in the medical device arena. So, when I went to Intuitive, or when I was with Cook Medical, for example, before I got to Intuitive, I was a mentor. So I enjoyed mentoring, right? I enjoyed helping new reps along their pathway and on the onboarding process. I was really good technically from an early point. So I was always part of the training. And so every time we broke out in training, I led groups, and I helped with anatomy training and procedure and cadaver labs and all that stuff. And so it was just a continual process. And then as you do that, as you like to teach, as you like to help others, and more importantly, as you like to learn, look, learning and evolving your knowledge is power. Okay, that's the first thing. But how you apply that knowledge is your superpower. And so, man, when you can really apply a superpower to applying the knowledge that you learn, that's the thing that people take notice of. And I think doing that, success or positions or titles or advancement, however you want to say it, right, Samuel? I think that's how I'm trying to answer your question is it kind of is a result of what you're doing on a daily in your current job. So, yeah, I was a representative for a long time. But during that time, I was always developing leadership. I was always helping others, and I was showing that I can develop this team of people, and we can get to another level together. And here's how we do it. And so all that led to this. And Intuitive Surgical and Cook Medical were both big companies.
Right.
It's interesting what you'll find in this space. and go ahead and cut me off. I know I'm starting to continue on, but I think it makes sense with what you were saying in terms of a pathway, right? Because all of your listeners out there, it's hard to understand what that pathway looks like, and if they don't have any familiarity with it, then where do you start? Where the transitions happen? How do they happen? What are my opportunities for advancement? Cook Medical was a $4 billion or more privately held medical device company. So they were not public. Well, that was unique because it was like a family-oriented, felt like a small, tight-knit organization, which was great. But they were in, over 40 countries around the globe, 9 divisions, really big organization. And so that culture is one way of, that's one culture that's out there. When I went to Intuitive, what enticed me there was the technology. Here's new innovation. Here's something that's unique in the market. It's robotic surgery. Nobody else is doing it at that point, really. There were a few competitors trying to get on, but nobody really. They own the market of robotic surgery. And so that offered unique differentiation to patients and for surgeons. So I just love that idea. So that's really what attracted me to go there. Well, that was a public company. So that's all about growth, man, right? You got to hit your numbers, So this can be intimidating, and this can be intimidating to anybody entering into our space, right? Especially if you go with a bigger company like Medtronic that you're familiar with, Bardavol, Johnson & Johnson. These big companies are growth companies, right? And they're on the stock market and they have shareholders, and they really need to keep showing numbers. And so you can get intimidated and focused on the number. And so what I noticed is I got to step back from that, because that can really hinder your development and hinder you being excellent.
And that was Matt Nover. It's always interesting to hear someone that came from pro basketball and then went into the medical sales arena and all the value he learned from that space to bring into medical sales. And he talked about some of that in part 1. So make sure you tune into what else he has to say with part 2, where he goes deeper into his role and deeper into some of the things he brought from basketball into medical device sales. And if you're someone that's listening to this and you're thinking, you know what, I want to be in this space. I want to be in medical sales, whether it's pharma or med device or something else, then you need to visit us at evolveyoursuccess.com and select Attain a Position right from the homepage and get in touch with us and have a conversation with one of our client specialists or myself, and let's have a conversation about getting you into the role you want to be in. If you're someone out there you're currently working for a company, you're where you want to be, but you really want to develop, you want to get a promotion, or you want to really maximize your territory, or you're trying to develop an online brand because you're seeing the value of really knowing what you're doing on platforms like LinkedIn, then again, visit evolveyoursuccess.com, select Improve Sales Performance, schedule some time with us, and let's have a conversation about how we can help you get to where you want to be. As always, we do our best to bring you guests that have real nuggets to share and some value to give your day into whatever you're doing, whether you're someone that wants to get into the industry, you're in, or you're leading the industry. So make sure you tune in next week for another episode of the Medical Sales Podcast and listen to Matt Nover in part 2. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And remember, I have a couple programs that show you exactly how to break into the medical sales industry, become a top-performing medical sales professional, and also how to masterfully navigate your career to executive-level leadership. Check out these programs and learn more at evolveyoursuccess.com. Stay tuned for more awesome content with amazing interviews.